When life is deep in a realm with sanity is lost and weak. Welcome to the abyss, retreat shadow inside the TF studio. All things matters, light and chaos, and time drives unfold in the realm of role-playing where legends are told.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Inside the GM Studio podcast, all about that tabletop RPG hobby. I'm your host, Matt.
And I am David.
With a brand new year, brand new show, first show of the year.
Word.
New campaign, new show, new year. Am I missing anything?
New haircut. No.
New haircut. Nope,
I
same
don't
old
know.
haircut.
I
I do want
I
to
don't
bring
know.
up that I do want to bring up that we are starting a new D&D campaign, or we are 2 sessions in. I think this is a good one because for those out there that I might want to even kind of document how this goes, if there is any other published dungeon campaign adventure that I have run more than Death House, which is none. I've never run any adventure more than Death House. It would be Lost Mine of Phandelver. I've run Lost Mine of Phandelver probably a good 6-7 times, but Death House I've done in the double digits. I don't even know where I'm at with that. I've done it so many times. But I've used it so many times for Lost Mine of Phandelver. I've used it to test Pathfinder rules to see how well it goes along with it. I used it for Fantasy Age rules. I've used it for Savage Worlds. So I've used it for different systems because it's just a great adventure. And I wanted to see how well it ported over. It's kind of like my base, that if this adventure goes well in this system, it's a pretty good system.
Yeah.
But now we are doing, what is it called?
Phandelver and Below, the Shattered Obelisk.
That's it, Shattered Obelisk. And I'm looking forward to it because I've wanted to either run this campaign or play in it, and I get to play in it. And I'm really looking forward to it. I have looked over it a little bit. I do know where it's kind of heading, but I didn't read too deep into it to actually know what the big bad is at the end, or if there is a big bad. I just have a good knowledge of where it's going. But David has definitely looked over it a few times, and I just want to know what because I didn't ask you what you thought of it after you kind of looked over it.
Yeah, that's I like that they decided to expand upon an already really solid adventure.
I was going to
and-
ask you I don't know if you've gotten that far, but if you feel like it connects with Lost Mines pretty well.
That's what I was going to say is, okay, so first of all, Lost Mine of Phandelver is kind of a mini campaign. You know, it's levels 1 to 5, I think. And that's not typically long enough for someone to call it a campaign, although, you know, it could be. It does kind of tie everything up nicely and whatever. But most players are probably not going to call something anything shy of 10 levels a campaign.
Yeah.
Start to finish. So I looked over the extension adventure. So how it runs is you run Lost Mine of Phandelver, and it's slightly different. They've kind of retrofitted some things. By the way, I find it amusing when so far, I can see you going like, that's new. I wonder if that was this a little different. But because you played in it at least once, too. I ran it once for you, Patrick. Patrick, I want to say Mike Taylor and Matt Moore.
Maybe, yeah.
And maybe Jason ended up joining at some point. Because the only reason I'm pretty sure Jason played with us is because I remember the whole "Where is the Black Spider" thing, and he was the one that started that. He was like, "Yeah, we're like the Dark Knight, you know. We're just like, where is the Black Spider?" and it just carried on to the rest of the campaign that followed after that.
And then, I was gonna say the campaign that came after it, new characters, new campaign, everything. But where's the Black Spider?
And they're like, we don't know who that is. That's not a guy that we know. So anyway, The one, and then so after the levels 1 to 5, the campaign, from what I can tell, goes up to level 12, and so it's a pretty solid campaign. But the thing that I'll say about it is that okay, so much of like almost half of the campaign is Lost Mine of Phandelver, and each adventure after that you gain like a maximum of 2 levels. So 5, you get like you go from 5 to 7, 7 to 9, 9 to 11, and then I think maybe last one is like just 11 to 12 or something like that. So the the thing that I think is lacking, if there is a thing that's lacking, it's that doesn't feel as cohesive as it might. So, given the overall escalating conflict and kind of where it goes, the they spend too much time in the campaign, 5 levels of something that only kind of tangentially, because it's retrofitted. So it only goes like when they throw these little like Easter eggs in there, these little changes to it, and it doesn't feel as cohesive. It really does feel like Lost Mine of Phandelver has been tacked on to something else. And so, but that said, it does work from what I can tell. It does kind of work, but there's so much of like all of the Lost Mine of Phandelver, it doesn't really bear on the rest of the plot. It's just got some things that springboard into the rest of that plot. And so that's not as cohesive as it probably could have been. Uh but it doesn't feel like shoehorned or anything. It just, for 5 levels of a 12 level campaign, to not really focus on the machinations of the big bad directly, or for the players to really even be aware of where the plot is going up until then. I haven't read through all the subsequent adventures super carefully. I kind of just looked them over in brief and kind of saw like what's the escalating stakes and where's the plot going, because I really wanted to refresh myself with the the adventure at hand, and it's been a decade since I ran it. But I can already see, like even just the area you're in already, there's already been substantial changes. Like they added different enemies, they kind of like shored some stuff up, and segueing into the next leg of the adventure. So we're kind of done with chapter one now. We're moving into the second chapter of the adventure, where you deal with the red brands, and then things become a whole lot more freeform. And then they were freeform for kind of the middle 2 acts, and then the final act kind of distills down into a little bit more of a railroady style. And that's a pretty good formula, I think, for this style of adventure, because there's a lot of wilderness, and there's lots of minor open quests and stuff like that, and so they're I think it'll go well. And like you said, you might not even get to all of the stuff that you had gotten to in the previous adventure, although it might take you that direction. I've ran this. I'm pretty sure I've ran it at least twice, because the first time I ran it, both times I ran it, the party went to Thunder Tree, and the first time it they managed to chase off the dragon. No, the first time they managed to negotiate with the dragon. But then the second time, the party actually like fought and more or less defeated the dragon. And that's fucking bizarre to have happen, especially because I don't think it was a 5-member party. It was still a 4-member party like we have now. And defeating even a young green dragon at 3rd level, or whatever you're supposed to be, is pretty impressive. But
Yeah, that's really impressive.
I just seem to recall that the party kind of got lucky, where it was like 2 of the characters got like critical hits on their first rolls, and they rolled really well on damage. I mean, with the right builds. I mean, we saw last night. I mean, you guys are level 1. Beto did 27 points of damage with 1 hit last night. And that's a lot. Like one shot kill the fucking bugbear, and with like like, oh, I got a crit, and I didn't even roll very well on my crit damage. It was like, oh fuck, and then he forgot to take his follow up attack for felling an enemy. It was like, so it wasn't even all that maximized, but he still just slapped the big bad of the dungeon crawl in like one hit. That was kind of neat. But you guys needed a win. You kind of got battered up a little bit the first act. So
Yeah, when Beto one hit Clark, I was just like, oh, thank God, because I was out of spell slots
yeah.
that entire time that we were in there. So yeah, it was just like, please, yeah, let's just do this really quickly. Let's take him down.
Yep. And so yeah, it's going well now. I think everybody's kind of got a feel. I'm gonna try to. Everybody did a pretty good job of bringing in their backstories and stuff. So I want to see what of that I can. Yours is already just kind of baked into the whole adventure, so I don't think I'll need to pull on too many threads there, especially because it's not like you have like a, oh, I have like this guy I used to adventure with and this old mentor and a lover that, is long lost and my sister is You're just like, no, dude, I'm like a person like yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a newborn.
So yeah, I got no history here, but I have goals, so that's cool. Your character has lots of much more lofty goals than the other characters do. So that's good. So I'm looking forward to getting into. You guys just hit level 2, and then we'll move into the second part where either you'll confront the red brands, although that can kind of get put on the back burner if the party decides you want to explore some of the more open quests that present themselves in Phandalin. It's just a trade-off. Obviously the longer you take to deal with the red brand thing, the worse it gets. So that's just kind of where it's at. But I'll see where it goes. I'm looking. Although we're off for a couple of weeks, so I have time to prep, I guess.
Yeah, yes, you will. Speaking of making new characters, this is kind of what kind of spurred this on for me. Whenever I make a new character for our campaigns, I do them so quickly now that I don't, that I never really put a lot of thought into them very much. Like I had a theme that I was going for, and it wasn't until our last campaign with my Inquisitive character that I really started thinking about how I wanted to build him up, how he was played, and how I wanted his abilities to kind of show through the mechanics. Same thing that I'm doing with this new guy, my Divine Soul Sorcerer. I really want him to, through the mechanics, show that he's inherently just a person that can heal through the weave and all that. And it got me to think that I really wish D&D would move away from subclasses and just give us a lot more feats. Because I really do believe that feats are a lot more... It's not only just the way that you can like customize your character, but I find them more interesting than subclasses. And almost as if they don't give as much as feats would, especially now with how 2024 does it, where every 4 levels you get a feat, no matter what. That's what you get now. Ability bumps are a feat, so, but it just says you gain a feat. I'm much more a fan of customization than how D&D does it with their classes, how they just kind of every level you get something. But they've always done well with feats because those always gave me like this cool thing to put into this character that made him a little bit more rounded. Not to say that backgrounds are bad, but backgrounds really never gave you, like their perks could be very minuscule. Like you're a folk hero, so people are just a little bit nicer to you.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. But when it comes to your relationship with class dynamics, subclass dynamics, and feats, what do you think is a good mixture there, David?
Well, I'll preface this by saying that like I really wish that backgrounds were more comprehensive. I wish that they didn't just give you like a small like role playing perk and then govern what skills you had. I would like there to see some progression.
Ooh,
as
that would be nice.
As a background, right? Like backgrounds, or even maybe certain feats being available to certain characters of certain backgrounds. So they tried to do a little bit of this by tinkering in later supplements, Xanathar's Guide, I want to say Tasha's Cauldron, with kind of giving you new uses and innovative ways to use toolkits, which are a pretty overlooked thing in D&D. They come up
Very much so.
they come up occasionally, but they're more there for flavor. And they don't really have much of a mechanical basis, but I would like it there to be more like a progression, like, you know, your background at this level, because basically your profession. And so it, I'm not saying it needs to be as progressive as your class, because if you have a background as a smith or whatever, you're you're not really going to be progressing as a smith, because now you're an adventurer. But that doesn't mean like through downtime activities or whatever that you couldn't be progressing some skills or whatever, like leveling up, so to speak. So I really wish that was a like played a more substantive role in some way other than just a little bit of flavor. And they've done a good job in recent like addendums to I think kind of like make it a little more prominent. Uh, but to me, I'm of two minds about this whole like your position, because partly I think when you've been playing D&D as long as we have, there is the appeal of that higher level of customization that feats offer. But I also understand from the purpose of like what D&D is part and parcel as a role-playing game of having your progression be class-based, because it is still supposed to be a role-playing game, right? And you're supposed to kind of there's already lots of ways to deviate that like full-on customization with like feats would almost kind of erode a lot of class distinctions. Especially because I like it when feats are more substantive. Like I like fifth edition feats more than fourth edition feats. Fourth edition feats were just like every other level, and you got them on top of class stuff, and they were just like these little tiny perks. And you really had to just design a character like at the micro level, like just tweaking every little thing toward whatever build. And too many things stacked, and it gets too crunchy, and I don't like it. But I also don't like where it's just like for whatever build of character you have, you know, there's a list of feats and they give you a pretty substantive bonus, but then once you've tapped them out, you're kind of like, okay, well, feats aren't really useful to me anymore unless I want to go for a great deal of versatility, right? And so, you know, if you're a barbarian or a great weapon fighter, yeah, and you're trying to be like tough and tanky, there's like 3 or 4 feats you can take. And you know, that's not a ton, but you're only getting them every 4 levels or whatever at if you're not doing an ASI. So that feels like okay, that's good. But I guess I like your camp in spirit, but I have trouble envisioning how it would work on a practical level that wouldn't just amount to kind of devolving the game into a system that is much more of like a classless system, one that's more customizable, and those have their role, like, and I really
Oh
do
yeah.
very much enjoy games like that where it's like there's no classes, you're just like a character, you know, you pick careers and you pick skills and you pick these feats or edges or whatever the hell they're called, boons, and you build your character from the ground up. I love games like that. I just don't think that's what D&D is.
Yeah. Oh, it's not. With like Pathfinder second edition right now is kind of doing this thing where this is kind of how I envision D&D should do it. So, oh man, I'm going to try to get this right. So Pathfinder's new thing is that you pick an archetype first, and that is your warrior, cleric, rogue, thing like that. And then as you are building towards this archetype, you can take little bits from other classes pretty much to that says, you know, it has a loadout that says that you can use this stuff or what the bits that you're taking, the skills and features. We'll say this will work for rogue, bard, you know, yada yada. It'll list off the different archetypes that it'll work with, but you can make it your own. So what you're really doing is you've picked a class, but you're making your own subclass in the same way. This is what I would like to see instead of like me saying I'm going to play this sorcerer because I like the idea of being a magic item, a living magic item, as well as spell points. I think spell points work really well, and I want to be a really badass healer with the spell points and all that. It's got to be flexible casting and all this. It's got to be fucking fantastic. But instead of going for a subclass that just says, yes, you are a divine soul sorcerer, so you can do this, this, and this, and then you're going to get wings that are going to come out of you, and you're going to get this much later. I think what I would rather do is like every other level or every 3 levels, whatever it is. I think it's every 3 levels for your subclass feature. Is that they say pick a feat, uh, and not even picking a subclass, but at 3rd level they say you get your first feat. And if I say, if I want to look, I'm like, ooh, divine magic, I could take that as a sorcerer. There's my start of it. 3 levels later, still getting my sorcerer good stuff, but I got to pick something else that maybe gave me like a. It's almost like the warlock. Oh God, what are they called? The
Patrons?
invocations. There we go. I got it.
Invocations. Okay, yeah.
It's like the warlock's invocations, where it just gives you these things that you can pick out, and it kind of builds upon this idea of this class that you're working with. That class that you're in will already give you features as you're progressing, but you can
Yeah.
kind of mold it into your own subclass or this character that you wanted.
Yeah, so you're kind of proposing more of a um like a tree like you get in
Yes.
video games where it's
Yep.
like, certain things are locked behind certain skills or having the tier 2 version of this, feature,
Mm,
and you can either go down that path or you can diversify the branches because really subclasses, I mean, a lot of them, I mean, they're not technically feats, but you get to a certain level and it goes, okay, now you're a ranger and now you need to choose uh, your fighting style, or you need to
yeah.
choose
What kind of
your
ranger are you?
right, and you get 4 or 5 options. You're a Colossus Slayer, you're a hunter,
Mm,
and that's kind of like a feat, right? It gives you
yeah.
bonuses that are in line with it, but you're just saying you would like there to be more of a wellspring to choose from, so you can choose to go down a particular path for a
Yeah.
particular type of
So say I
character.
wanted to be a hunter ranger or a specialized dual wielding ranger, but I still wanted the beast companion. And if I could just go and take the feat beast companion later, not having to take, like build into that subclass, I think that
Yeah.
would be really cool.
But here's the downside of that is that for a certain stripe of player, casual players like Beto, for instance, or players that are new, that that design having a particular purpose and a perfect trajectory for players like you and Cody who kind of know like here is the trajectory of my
Hmm.
character. Here's what I take at level 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to get the build that I want. That doesn't necessarily jibe with players of all experience levels, so
Yep.
they often will be like they just want to go, okay, what do I get this level? And okay, I have 3 options to choose from, and I don't really have to think necessarily about the interplay of the previous options I've taken and the options that I will take in the future because
Yep.
they're prescriptive. And so I games like that are they're more of a barrier for inexperienced or more casual players.
Yeah.
They lend themselves to building a character that has utility in a variety of circumstances. You can still build a character that's like just a pure version of X, Y, or Z, but then you can also build a lot of utility. What I like about the D&D kind of more class structured system is that it encourages the instead of encouraging players to think about their own path as a character and their character's journey and arc and growth, um, it's more collaborative, and it forces you into kind of like a path that is more in line with like a group dynamic. Like
Mm,
you said, it's like there's archetypes, and you go, okay, if you're gonna be a fighter, then you have some options at your disposal, but it's like you can't really build like a healer fighter. I mean, you really, it's like you're kind of going to be like a strikery fighter, you're going to be a tanky fighter, maybe you're going to be a ranged fighter. But that's not really the fighter's role to have like all this utility and be like a skill monkey and be a face. And
hmm.
you just choose a different class for that. If you want to be kind of like a face with a little bit of healing and still kind of fightery, then you just play a paladin. That's just kind of the way it goes. And I think that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it and the architecture out of it for players that haven't don't know every feat, every subclass, every whatever. But here's what I will say is that if it in some like they could do that, they could and should do that. It would be better than what they have done, which is just flooding the market with like supplement after supplement that just seems to kind of get at that.
Hmm.
Here's new subclasses. Here's 3 new subclasses for the ranger and 2 new subclasses for the fighter. And here's all these racial feats and racial bonuses and other things and other things and other things. And it's like, dude, couldn't you just make it like give us a wealth of options and make it
Yeah,
more customizable from the gate? But that, I mean, that just doesn't sell books,
it
And
doesn't.
so,
But yeah, I thought the same thing. Like you buy a new splat book or whatever, new book came out, and like we added 10 new feats in there that you can use to customize your characters. But when you're talking about some people like that, being able to just know what's going to happen, our buddy Rob is that way. Every
yeah.
time that we played Savage Worlds or when we played Shadowrun, he was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need structure. Because he likes that. He likes to just play, I'm going to play this class, and this is going to tell me what I get every time
Hmm.
we level up. And that's my bag. And I got nothing wrong. I got nothing against that at all. That's what you like? Fucking cool. Because I also know I did find out as I'm going through like so Pathfinder, Shadowrun, Fabula Ultima recently, Savage Worlds when we did Eberron. These books, because they are all kind of build your character in different ways, they're not exactly class specific. They have like Fabula Ultima and Savage Worlds will have. Do you know these classes? Is this what you're kind of looking for? This is how we would suggest to build it. Cool, great.
Yeah.
That really works out well when it comes to players like this. Because as much as I love customizable, universal game systems, it's a lot to throw in front of a new player and just say, you got to know all of this shit if you want to make a character.
Hmm.
Like if you go into Savage Worlds, like you need to know all your edges, you need to know all the flaws, you need to know those things before you can even think about building a character. Same thing with Shadowrun. They have their good things there. If you want to play a Decker, if you want to play a Street Samurai, they have some built out to say this is what you should look for. These games need to do this more. If you are not a class based system, please do this.
Yeah.
Unless you're a Cyberpunk Red, because I think as soon as you pick your class, you get one ability, and that's it. You just get a certain ability that comes for being that class, and then everything else is just built like anything else. You just build a character around it.
Yeah.
Uh,
It
but yes, I will have to say, if you are going to be a customizable character building mechanic, give some examples because that is a little hard for new players to get their heads around.
Yeah, because everybody's going to be like, and like I said, I like classic Gnostic systems. That's
Mm,
what's, um, it's part of the draw for me for Barbarians of Lemuria is like just you're just like a character. Like there's no classes. You just kind of build everything from the ground up.
mm,
But the system in the game, if it's designed more in a way that encourages that certain type of build where it's not based on like roles, right? So, and by roles I mean roles roles, um, because a D&D party is just kind of like built in a certain way because adventures are built in a certain way,
mm,
and you go, okay, so we need somebody that's got like this skill set and this skill set and someone that has this skill set. It's more like an A team situation.
mm.
And so if everybody's kind of going for customization and like versatility, then your party is lacking in some way. But if there's a thing that makes Barbarians of Lemuria and other classic Gnostic systems feel distinct from D&D, it's that it rewards that sort of interplay. You don't have to be thinking about the fact that like I'm the tank and so I do X, or I'm the healer, so I do Y. There's more flexibility for you to kind of play around, and but I would like it if classic Gnostic systems were, or yeah, systems without classes, let's
Yeah.
say, did provide you a little bit more of some. how you leverage the mechanics to get a certain build that you want, because you're always going to be drawing on some sort of archetype. And sometimes if you come from a class-based system, that can hem you in a little bit and you can feel like overwhelmed. But like if you just took somebody who had never played a role-playing game and put them into a system that doesn't have classes, and you just said, okay, you start with a blank slate. What sort of character do you want to play? They would likely be drawing on some other sources, film or maybe literature, video games. It'd be like, oh, I kind of want to be like a Legolas character. And you go like, okay, so you want to be kind of a mobile archer. Or like I kind of want to be like the the fallen like noble guy, or the sly deft rogue, or I want to be the burly barbarian guy, the warrior type, the something. They would be drawing on some thing, and typically whatever game you're playing in is going to govern what sort of archetypes you're drawing from. You're playing in Shadowrun, you have some ideas from sci-fi about what sort of characters are appropriate in a Shadowrun game. And if you're familiar with them, then you can build a character up from that. And if you're playing in Barbarians of Lemuria, you should know a little bit about pulp fantasy, because that draws heavily from that. You go, okay, here's the sort of characters that are in pulp fantasy, right? I'm going to be a buxom, beautiful, like chainmail bikini wearing broad, right? Like that's a thing, and then there's also a guy that's like the sneaky rogue kind of guy. And so sometimes the rules can like hem players in. So I would like to see a little bit more of some of that in games. Even if it's just not necessarily like some table or some sort of thing that's like prescriptive and laid out, but just giving you kind of a groundwork in a descriptive way of like, here are the sort of characters that are typical for this world and what it is that they do, and everything that you do in this regard you can't do in another regard, but it doesn't mean that it wouldn't have any utility, right? It's like it's in D&D, you're not likely to play a barbarian and probably prioritize stealth and stuff. But I mean, you could. It is kind of like a hunter.
They'd be better than the fighter because they don't wear heavy armor.
Yeah, but in a pulp fantasy thing, it's like, well, you have Conan, and he's like, he's a pretty stealthy dude. He's always like sneaking in and out of places. He's kind of part thief, part barbarian, part brigand, and so the characters evolve and they become more well-rounded over time instead of better versions of the thing that they already are at the start of the campaign. That opens some interesting role-playing opportunities, but I think it might be a little bit too much in terms of the mechanics for new players, because generally speaking, we're always talking about how a glut of mechanics can overwhelm new players, but so can just really sparse mechanics, like really sparse, like highly customizable, build it as you go is more. You have to have been playing a game long enough to have some kind of role-playing ideas, and this is the kind of character I want to be, and here's the sort of things that play into that sort of character that I want to be. New players can just be awash in a sea of uncertainty of how to get there. So
very much so. Been there, done that, dealt with it. Sometimes it is fun to just give them a list of, this is what you get. You pick one of these and then they give you your shit. Works out really well that way. All right, I'm going to bring this show to a close for this week because my voice is already going out, and I'm going to try to save it for a little bit for tomorrow. So if any of you out there want to tell us about, what did you think? Are you a good fan of feats? Do you like the class system the way it is in D&D right now, or should it be a little bit more customizable? Let us know. Send it to Where's My Fucking Music?
Send it to where'smyfuckingmusic.com.
Send it to insidethegmstudio@gmail.com and let us know. And please give us some other talking tips. Give us some stuff to talk about. We like it when you write in. We love answering your questions, and we love bullshitting with you. So go ahead and send it in. Tell us anything. Tell us we're doing a good job or not. Tell us that we look great, because we like that as well. Don't get much of that anymore these days. But
speak for yourself.
I know, that's right. But for this week, for Inside the GM Studio, I have been your host, Matt.
And I'm David.
A good night.